Hey, this is Derek Depker of bestsellersecrets.com and excuseproof.com. In this video, you're going to learn how you can overcome writer's block. Even more importantly, you're going to learn how to overcome self-doubt, which is often at the root of writer's block. And self-doubt could really hinder any of the creative work that you do. So it's not just writing words. It could be, in my case, when I first got started writing music, composing music, anything that requires you to share your gift with the world. And you're worried about, well, what if this isn't good enough? What are people going to think about this? This video is inspired by an email that I received, and I'll read what it said. The person who reached out to me he's a writer, and he has this practice where he wants to write every morning for an hour a day after he gets out of the shower. And he says, after taking a shower, I'm ready to write, and I just sit there. I ask myself questions like, what if this idea isn't good enough? Or what if this post will suck? And I can't get myself to write. Then he goes on to say, then I have to go to work, spend the day mad at myself for not using the quiet hour I had because it's the only time of day I can actually do some writing. So does this sound familiar? Can you relate to this? I know I can. Plenty of times in my life where I've had self-doubt and the worry about, is what I'm doing, is it going to be good? Especially if you're a high achiever. I mean, if you have a high standard of excellence, that's like part of the territory that you're going to have these questions. So it's not a bad thing to have that. It's actually, welcome to being human. You want what you do to be good. You want it to be well liked and well received. So I could just sit here and you might hear platitudes from people like, just believe in yourself and just go for it. And, you gotta overcome the fear and stretch your comfort zone. The question though is how? How do you do that? What are the practical methods to get yourself to overcome not just the writer's block, but again, that self-doubt, that fear maybe of a rejection as well. So here's 5 proven strategies that will help you overcome these blocks and these doubts. So the first thing is to understand how what I call the slingshot effect works. And before I get into that, I remember this idea of being a high achiever and being talented at something can actually be a hindrance in some ways. When I first started playing guitar, after a couple of years, my friends were like, man, you're really good at guitar playing. And I was like, great. And I also wanted to write music. And I was hesitant for a long time to write music because I thought, well, what if my writing isn't as good as my playing? I can play an Eddie Van Halen solo or whatever, and that's cool. What if what I write sucks? Right? What are people going to think about that? And what I found out is this idea of what helped me overcome it was intuitively realizing this idea that we all need a safe space to practice. That you're not going to get good until you produce poor quality work. And it sounds obvious, but think about this. What's not so obvious is if I ask you the question, well, how do you make a muscle stronger? Right? And, well, you might be obvious to think, well, you work out and you do resistance training. If you think about it, doing exercise, lifting weights doesn't make you stronger. It makes you weaker. See, the answer to how do you get stronger is you get weaker first, temporarily. So you actually have to enter into strength. You must walk through the door of weakness, so to speak. The reason why I call this the slingshot effect is imagine what you want is over here. You might pull back a slingshot in the opposite direction to release it over there. Okay? So someone might invest money before they make money. They give money before they receive it. You give up strength, you go into weakness before you get stronger. So when it comes to improving your performance and reaching excellence, you first might actually get worse. There's a saying in music school, it was, to paraphrase, like if you sound good in the practice room, you're not practicing well. Because you want to actually sound bad in the practice room, it means you're stretching yourself. In sports, if you're at a certain caliber of performance, sometimes to get to that next level, your performance will take a dip. It will decline before it has that breakthrough because you're trying something new. You're trying something unfamiliar in order to grow yourself. So this first strategy is all about giving yourself permission and safe space to write something bad. And you don't have to show it to anyone, or you don't have to show it to everyone, maybe a few select group of people that you trust. And you got to create that safe space to practice and have poor performance. That's the counterintuitive part. To have excellent performance, you need to give yourself time and space to play and have poor performance. This is something I learned from Tim Ferriss, and he said his target was to write 2 crappy pages a day. Now he did a couple things there. One is he gave himself a low target in terms of quantity, just 2 pages. But a second thing crappy pages. That meant he had no standard of this needs to be good. When you lower the bar, you give yourself permission to play and be experimental, then that actually can open you up to be more creative and ultimately actually do better in the long term. So 3 magic words that I often share are can I just? And then you make a micro commitment. So strategy for this, give yourself permission. Can I just write, maybe it's just 1 crappy paragraph a day. Can I just write 2 crappy pages and I don't even have to share it with anyone. No one even has to see it. I don't have to post it on my blog. I don't have to put it out for public consumption. There needs to be some space in your time where you get to play, where you get to experiment, where you get to practice. Okay? So again, can I just give yourself that low target? Set the bar lower. It helps. Another workout analogy. You don't like try to lift the heaviest weight or wake up, jump out of bed and run full sprint. You warm up first. You purposely take it easy and you get yourself into the motion of it. And that momentum generates motivation. And getting in motion warms you up and it sort of gets everything, the juices flowing in order for you to do even better quality work. Okay. The second thing, so another way of putting that is give yourself permission to suck. Give yourself permission to suck and do poor quality work. Second thing is, let's look at some of these questions again. What if? Both of them, notice how it starts with what if. What if this idea isn't good enough? What if this post will suck? Okay, now there's a few angles we could take with this. You could go, what if the positive? What if this post is amazing? What if people love it? Isn't it funny how sometimes you just focus on the negative side? Are you giving just as much attention to the positive side? Or what if I'm going to feel worse by not getting anything done, which it sounds like it's kind of been the case, versus just even producing something that's not the greatest, right? So the standard becomes less about quality and more about completion, just completing that hour of work, whatever you produce. The angle that I want to take with this is to really dive into the what if. What if, I'll read it again, what if this idea isn't good enough? Okay, what if it isn't good enough? Then what? Right? You post an idea that isn't good enough. Is there going to be like a mob of people that show up and break down your door and drag you through the street and people are throwing tomatoes at you and there's a national broadcast about what a bad writer you are and then your family disowns you and you're living as a homeless person and you're scraping for food off the ground, like you're digging in a dumpster for food? Is that going to happen? No, of course not. You take it to the point of absurdity. You blow it out. In NLP, we call this, logical levels. You blow past the level of, or even makes sense, and you just go to the absurdity of it. You realize, what in the world is there even to be worrying about? Or how is this even a fear? It becomes ridiculous. Another cool thing about this is you come back to what's reasonable. So what happens if this isn't any good? Maybe no one reads it. Okay? Can you handle that? What if you write this and someone goes, oh, that sucks? Well, people are probably going to say it sucks even if you write something good too, because there's always going to be someone that says it sucks. So probably not going to be that bad, whatever happens, right? You're probably going to be able to handle it. You'll be okay. And, again, going back to the first point, if it really isn't that good, you don't even have to share it with anyone, right? So it gives you this ability to really dive into the what ifs. And part of this is what you resist persists. Not always the case, but that's a useful way of looking at it. If you resist it, it persists. But if you allow yourself to go into the doubts, hear the doubts, really sit with them, you'll be able to dissipate some of the power that they have. It happened recently. I wish I had said something to someone. Have you ever had that moment where you think afterwards, like, oh, I could have said something, or I wish I would have said this or that? And it's like, well, only I had a time machine, right? And it's like kind of like a regret is how I describe it. Like this sort of like nagging regret. And I wish I would have thought of it right in that moment. But later, if that feeling came up, I'd go, okay, let me try to feel as much of this feeling as possible. Let me try to magnify it. Let me make it 10 times stronger. And what's crazy, the slingshot effect again, if you actually go into the negative emotions, it's quote unquote negative. They're not really negative. They're just emotions. If you really go into that, it actually seems to dissipate and disappear. It's crazy. So give yourself permission to go there. Give yourself permission to enter into that sort of world that you fear and the feelings and the what if and have fun with it and dive into it. And you'll realize it's just feelings. It's just crazy thoughts. It has no power over you. You are the one that's in control of all these thoughts and these feelings. Third thing, the other question that was asked was, what if this post will suck? Okay, or the other one was it's not good enough. So it's really about quality here that we see, which is where some of this doubt's coming in. And think about what determines if it's good enough. Can you know that? Now we can judge our work maybe decently well as you get more skilled. What happens though is if you're really creating something for someone else, in this case, it's not a journal, it's not just self-expression, it's really meant to impact someone else, entertain them, educate them, have some sort of value for them. Aren't they the only ones who can determine whether it's good enough? Aren't they the only ones that can determine whether something sucks or not? Okay, so on this hand, it really kind of is in some other people's hands, but here's the thing. It's not about pleasing everyone. So some people are going to think it sucks no matter what you do. Who are the people that you are trying to reach, and what do they think? And at that point, if they don't think it's good, great, you can get feedback from them. Okay, so this third point is don't be the only judge of your work. Get outside feedback. Now we're getting practical. Now we're getting strategic because you might need to improve as a writer. You might have room for improvement as we all do in whatever your creative effort is. So the only way you're going to get better if something that you write sucks is to get some feedback on how to make it better. And there's this concept of the gap where when you first start out, you tend to know what your potential is. You know what good writing is. You know what good performance looks like, sounds like, feels like. And then you can look at your own work and see that it's not there yet. And all creatives go through this journey of, I know what good is by seeing it in someone else maybe, but mine isn't there yet. But I don't yet know quite how to bridge that gap. And the non-sexy answer is practice and effort and putting in the reps. So again, that goes back to the first point. Give yourself that space to practice and then get some feedback on how you can make those improvements because you might not know how to make those improvements yourself as you're still learning. And then even so, we all have our blind spots and can use outside feedback. The fourth strategy is to, and this is very practical now for writers, but again, any sort of creative work, get inspiration. Use templates. Use something that gives you a skeleton or a structure that you can follow so you're not just sitting there staring at a blank screen. So if you read someone else's writing in this case, and it's a story and then a takeaway and then a lesson, a story and then a lesson from that story. Let's just make it simple. So, okay, can I tell a story and then share a lesson that I got from that? If so, then you could use that as a template. So you're not starting from scratch. You have something that sort of like eases you into it. And you go, I know I'm going to kind of follow this particular structure. And so it takes less work to get going. We're using writing prompts and so on. Fifth thing, now we get into something really the deep, juicy work of this, which is the limiting beliefs. Things like, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. Who am I to do any of this? Imposter syndrome. Right? And there's a couple things to understand with this. One is sometimes these so-called limiting beliefs, they might appear as limiting beliefs. Let's call it doubts. You have doubts. Is the doubt a process I take my coaching clients through is listing out the doubts and then categorizing, is this a limiting belief or is it something that needs a strategy or both? So my writing isn't good enough. Is that just a limiting belief? Maybe. But maybe it's an honest acknowledgement that your writing isn't good enough. I think about American Idol contestants. I'm the greatest singer, and they get up and sing and it's terrible. They need to really actually be told, hey, you're not good enough. And maybe you just need to practice, but you're not at that level yet. That's reality, right? So sometimes it just takes a strategy. My writing isn't good enough. That's not a limiting belief. That's an honest acknowledgement of where I'm at as a writer. And so I need strategies, coaching, going through writing courses, getting some feedback, just putting in more practice, whatever it is that's going to help you improve. Okay. So is it a limiting belief or is it a strategy? Now, if it's a strategy, there's usually more practical answers. If it's a limiting belief, there's some different processes. I take people through a process that I learned in NLP training that can eliminate a limiting belief in about 10 to 15 minutes. Doesn't matter where it came from. Doesn't matter if you remember what happened when you were 2 years old, that someone's sister got a candy bar and they didn't, so now they don't feel like they're good enough. It doesn't matter where it came from or if you even remember it. You can eliminate limiting beliefs fairly quickly. But I'll give a couple things that you can take away right now that doesn't require coaching or deeper intervention. One is a story. And this story is about the value that you have. And it especially relates if you're struggling with, well, who am I? What do I have to offer? How does my work fit into the world? I mean, there's so many other people. I remember I went through this a couple years back and I got depressed about it. I'm like, what does it matter what I do? There's going to be other people that write. There's going to be other people that speak. There's nothing unique I can really bring into the world. And I felt like my life was meaningless. It had no purpose, no real contribution. I could easily be replaced. And I imagine, what if you, the person who wrote this, by the way, the email, they're a doctor. Now, it's interesting. My dad's a doctor, and the thing about being a doctor, again, is that high achiever mindset. You don't have a lot of room as a doctor to screw things up. You know, you got to get it right. And so it's a great in that context, but in this context, it can lead to a lot of pressure to perform. And I imagine you are a doctor now. So everyone watching this, not just the person who sent the email, imagine you're a doctor and now you're on an airplane. As you're on this airplane, all of a sudden you hear a call on the intercom. Are there any doctors on board? And you realize that someone is about to die unless they get a doctor to come and save their life. And you're the only doctor on this plane. And you go, and at that moment, you are the only person in the world that matters to that person who might not live unless they get your help, unless they receive your gift. Your gift makes all the difference to that one person right there. Now, you may or may not be a doctor, but you have a gift. You have something that could potentially save a person's life or entertain a person. And that can even, you have no idea the kind of shift that can make for someone if they're going through hard times, to be entertained, and it helps them maybe even just laugh and get through it, or be drawn into a new world that shifts their perspective. And your writing or your music helps them, or your writing teaches them something, right? Whatever it is that you have to share, you might make all the difference for that one person. They might stumble upon your blog or your book or whatever it is that you're creating just when they need it the most. And at that moment, you're the only one that matters. It doesn't matter how many other people are out there, how many other people could do this. Second thing is to strategically now think about, okay, I have a limiting belief. Maybe it's I'm not good enough, or my writing sucks, whatever it is. Ask yourself, what's a more empowering belief you would like to take its place? That's the first thing. Now, an empowering belief isn't just like I'm the world's greatest writer. It's not about delusion, right? It's not about arrogance. It's not about no one loves my writing and then believing everyone loves my writing. Neither of those are probably true, right? It's not likely that no one likes what you're doing. It's also not likely that everyone's going to love it either. You don't even want everyone to love it. So it might be something more balanced, like the right people will resonate with my writing, or the right people will appreciate my gifts. And it's that right people that's a key component of this belief. Another empowering belief could be my writing is getting better each week. It's getting better and better each week. Or my performance, whatever it is getting better and better each week. That's the first step. What's the new belief? The second step is you look for evidence to conform it. Now, our limiting beliefs, we find evidence for them too. I remember I was about to move out to LA, and I heard that a lot of people in LA were snobs. Now, I grew up in Indiana, so I'm kind of, chill, Midwestern, fairly grounded sort of person. And I spent about 3 to 4 years in Nashville, Tennessee. And so it's very Southern hospitality. Anything I can do for you, dear? Oh, bless your heart. Everyone's very friendly. And then I'm like, oh man, LA, like I hear they're kind of snobby or whatever. You know what happened when I moved out to LA? There is no LA person, right? LA person. There's no stereotype. It's millions of different people. There's so many different types of people. How could you possibly have a stereotype? And yeah, there were some snobby people working in customer service. But here's the thing. If you've ever worked in customer service or you've ever interacted with other human beings at any point in time in your life, what happens is, you might work, I worked at a restaurant for a period of time, valet parking cars. You might have 50 people that come in that night. 49 of them are very normal or nice and friendly, but there's one person who's rude, who's a jerk, cusses you out, whatever it is. And then what do you think happens at the end of the night? What do most people tend to dwell on? The 49 pleasant experiences or the one jerk or horrible experience? As human beings, many people default to thinking about the painful thing. Our brains are wired for survival. They're wired to avoid pain and to go, ooh, that was bad. And that has a stronger reaction than, oh, that was nice. Now, what does this mean? Practically, it means unless you're consciously using effort to shift your focus onto those all those pleasant experiences, your brain will tend to default to the not positive experience. Okay? Now, it's okay to recognize the not positive in life. I'm not saying ignore that, but at least give equal weight then. And you go, okay, one poor experience versus 49 validating experiences. So in your writing, you get a review that says, I had this review, this book isn't worth the paper it's written on. Ouch. But there's all these reviews from people saying how it changed their life and how it impacted them. So what am I going to do? Let the one review dictate my actions, or let all the positive impact dictate my actions? So think about it. It's not the people who don't get it. You're doing it for the people who do value your gifts. And look for the evidence of that. So if the new empowering belief is my writing is valuable to the right people, find the people who value it. Get that validation. Get that feedback from them. Look at all the evidence that supports that. Look at all the evidence of how what you're doing is positively impacting people. If you don't have that evidence, maybe it's a sign to get some new people in your life who do believe in you, who do support you. Again, we're social creatures. You know, we're hardwired. Actually, I don't think I mentioned that. Another thing about us as human beings, we're wanting to fit in, right? Wanting to be part of the tribe. That's why it feels painful. What if this isn't good and people reject me? Well, a way to overcome that, make sure you surround yourself with enough positive reinforcement, people who do believe in you, so that anytime that comes up where someone doesn't like what you do, you have enough positive reinforcement from people who do believe in you. Make sense? So to recap that process, find the new empowering belief, then actively look for evidence that supports that new belief. You need to seek it out. Your brain will default to fear. It will default to survival. That's useful. You want to have that. But it can overpower things unless you're also consciously looking for more empowering beliefs, things that better serve you, and the evidence that supports that. Quick recap. So you have 5 strategies here. You can use any and all of them. You might find one of these is most relevant to you right now. So the first thing, give yourself permission to do crappy work. Can I adjust and make a micro commitment in terms of quantity and quality? Lower the bar, and you don't have to share it with anyone. Give yourself that space to play and have fun and practice. Second thing is go into the extreme of what would happen. What's the worst case scenario? How bad would that feel? Really go into it, and you'll blow it out to the point where you realize whatever it is, you can handle it. And if you don't feel like you can handle it, then again, you don't have to go that far at first. Just stretch your comfort zone. Don't break it. What if I write something bad and no one likes it? Well, then don't share it with anyone at first until you get feedback, right? Which goes to the third point. Get feedback, right? You can judge your own work, but also get some outside feedback. Fourth thing, use inspiration, templates, prompts, whatever it is that helps you get started. The fifth thing is address your doubts. Break it down. Do you need a strategy, or is this a limiting belief, or both? And if it's a limiting belief, find a new empowering belief, and then find the evidence that supports it. You can also reach out to me for help with any of this breakthrough work, any deeper belief change work at info@excuseproof.com, or derek@bestsellersecrets.com. Love to hear your comments. What have you found from this video has been helpful for you? And or what have you personally found has been helpful for you overcoming self-doubt and writer's block? You can comment on the video or send me an email. Look forward to hearing your thoughts. Take care.